Thank you. Great, thank you. That's an excellent icebreaker, Tamara. I love that one. Well,
so do you mean like besides build some affordable housing? Like what would we do like for fun?
Everything.
Yeah, it could be build more affordable housing if that's your dream. But what was your dream when you were little? And if you had all the money and that was no object that you could just do what your dream was, what would that be?
I'd have a big doggy ranch.
A doggy ranch?
I'd rescue all the dogs. And we'd just run around with puppies all day long.
Oh, that sounds so nice.
And maybe a couple alpaca. Yep.
To keep the grass down, right?
Right.
Let me know.
Well, I'm going on
this
fundraising walk for veterans in April through an organization called Operation Shockwave, great new veteran supporting organization in the East Valley. And it's an alpaca walk. And so you walk the alpaca, and apparently they do this like every, I don't know, maybe once a month or whatever, and they do it specifically for veterans, and it's supposed to be very therapeutic because apparently alpacas are supposed to be able to like feel your feelings and like sort of share that burden with you. And so while we walk, they teach us about like those qualities of the alpacas. And I think when it's not a fundraiser and it's really with veterans, I mean, I think they get to like just share and talk and commune with the alpacas. And apparently it's very therapeutic. So I'm super excited about it.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll have to send you pictures. There's like, they have pictures of it. There's people just walking like on a little lead, the little alpacas. It's adorable.
Don't let it spit on you.
I'm all right. I'm all right with a little spit, as long as it's, you know, nice and furry and cuddly.
Clearish.
Right.
Well, should we, I know the only two folks that said they were not able to make it are Liz and Eric today. So we should be expecting everyone. I got confirmation from everyone. Do you think we should get going on this, Ryan and Tamara?
We have just.
Yes, I was trying to start your icebreaker for you.
Okay, Tamara, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off, that would be great.
Okay, welcome all three of you to the board strategy session. Today we're supposed to be going over the mission statement as well as our ad hoc work group report, seeing if we need some more revisions for our mission statement, although I feel like we've got some pretty good bones. So maybe just a little bit of wordsmithing, I think, is where we left it in our last meeting. Also wanted to discuss training sequence and develop of policy related strategies and goals, as well as new member recruitment. We also wanted to review our draft timeline and setting some decisions for our calendar, our NOFA priorities, as well as making sure that we're integrating the racial equity part of the racial equity report as part of our work, and making sure that we're inviting people with lived experience and Black and Indigenous people of color to be part of this process of redefining the CoC. They should definitely be part of these conversations. And so I feel like we should figure out how to incorporate that in a really inclusive way. And then we're going to identify some next steps. So opportunities for engagement at the meetings. I feel like we should also really discuss what's going on with our committees and what they should be free to work on and what we want them to hold off on and for further review from the board, and just making sure that we have something that's really clear and concise so our committees can just start really hammering some work out. They're very motivated to get some work done, so we want to make sure that we support that. And with that, yeah, and then the icebreaker is if money was no object, what would you want to do with your life? So for example, if I had all the money in the world, right now we've opened a business. It's a non-alcoholic bar that if it was my dream, that's what we would have. I would have like this big speakeasy non-alcoholic bar with like Arizona specific barbecue that you can eat with it. So that would be my dream. It's totally random, but
awesome.
Yeah, on to the next for their icebreaker.
Appreciate it. Tamara, do you want to tag somebody?
Ooh, I'm gonna tag Marshall Franklin.
Can you hear me fine? I'm operating a different part of my house today. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm probably going to dampen the $1 million things or multi-million dollar things. So there's some serious things I would do, and then there's some fun things. So really, if I had the opportunity, it's been 30 years ago, but nonetheless very close, an aunt to domestic violence. Her husband brutally would beat her. She'd go back, and long story short, he finally murdered her. But what I'd like to do is to be able to take money genuinely and work with Sojourner or one of those kinds of agencies and purchase homes or purchase a large block of vacant land and build a village that has wraparound services for everyone who are victims of those types of domestic violence. And so and to name it, her name was Clementine. So we called her Aunt Clem, but it would be Clementine's Place. So that's what I would really want to do. And I would name it after her, and it would be about her and breaking the cycle of domestic violence. And then for the fun stuff, I would just travel, to be honest with you. I go visit Tamara's Speakeasy, Tamara's Speakeasy, and eat barbecue, and I may sneak in my own little bottles of alcohol. We'll need a little something, but I would just genuinely love to just travel not to the places where you kind of want to go because it's the wonderful places to go and sexy places to go, but some of these out of the way places just to get to know and be a part of cultures in a different way. You know, you kind of get in the midst of it and live their life and spend a week or two there and then go do something different. So that's what I would do. I'd travel and drink.
I would too, for sure. Absolutely. That sounds so fun. Did we have anyone else join? Any new board members or do MAG staff? Oh, Bruce joined us and Joan. You want to tag somebody else, Marshall? I
will go ahead and did we tag Jackie? Did you talk?
No, I haven't talked yet.
I'm tagging Jackie then.
You know, I have always dreamed of, if I had all the money in the world, of setting up a foundation and having the responsibility, but also the great, tremendous gratitude of giving it away to worthy causes. And, you know, on a fun side, traveling more of the world sounds really awesome to me too, Marshall. So if you need a travel buddy or a +1, keep me in mind.
Wonderful. Do you want to tag someone else, Jackie?
I'll tag Bruce.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Bruce.
I joined late, so all I heard was Marshall sneaking in some bottles and going on a trip. And then I'm following the woman who talked about establishing a foundation. So what was the question before
The icebreaker was, if money was no object and you could achieve a dream of yours that you haven't been able to, what would be your dream?
Stand-up comedy.
Yes, Bruce. That's awesome.
Oh wait, sorry, I meant eliminating world hunger, world peace, peace in the world. But personally, that's what would be fun.
Bruce, I love that. My alter ego is a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bruce, do you ever try out like jokes and stuff? Have you ever tried it?
Well, you're supposed to say, "You're such a funny guy, I understand it." Well, yeah, I have a few. Then I watch real pros, and it goes like, "Those people are good." Anyhow, yeah, that's about it. It's pretty simple.
Thanks, Bruce. Joan, do you have a dream? Like on Pretty Woman, what's your dream? Hope if you're talking, we can't hear you. Weren't you on, Joan?
Yeah. Oh, she was. Yeah, she's on iPhone.
You may need to press *6 to unmute. She's joined by phone. Oh.
Okay, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I love all the previous answers. I didn't come in until I heard about Tamara's dream. And so I think I would, on the real side, like on the philanthropic side, very similar to what Jackie said, I would invest in my friends' dreams and give to Tamara's organization or startup, and invest in Marcel's village for DV survivors. And if Bruce wants to go big on the improv stage, I'm here for it. I'll pay my 2 drinks minimum. But on the fun side, I would say, similar to I think what everyone has said, travel. I've got teenagers, and so I'd love to have as many memories of travel with them before they start really getting annoyed by traveling with their parents.
Awesome. I think that's all the board members. Mag staff, would you like to play?
Sure, we'll play along.
All right, go ahead,
I'll go, I suppose. Of course, after eliminating, world hunger and homelessness, I would probably just do like a lot of creative activities. Before I decided on my major in college, I was a musical theater major. And so I would probably get back to that and just do as much like fun, creative, dorky stuff that I could do. After that, I will toss it over to Brandy.
Thank you, Sarah. I love hearing everyone's dreams. Of course, investing in the community would be my first priority. And then if there was money to spare, my husband and I have been watching the Yellowstone series recently, and I am dreaming of living on a ranch in Montana and having like all the horses, all the dogs, Ryan. I'll have space for dogs if you want to join me there. And then traveling with my family.
Awesome.
And turn it over to Amy.
Greetings, everyone. Good to see you. Really fun to hear about all of your different plans and ideas and dreams. My husband and I have always wanted to open up a bed and breakfast, but I would want it to have a social purpose. So I used to work at a group home, and one time I took the kids out, and they're long-term foster care teens. And so I took the kids out camping because I grew up camping, and just being in nature really helps me to center and to get back to what's important. So our bed and breakfast would offer that space, a safe space for people who kind of need to find themselves again, and can do that like by being more in touch with nature. So that's what we would do. I've decided for my husband.
Love it. Awesome.
No
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. All right.
It was really fun, Tamara. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yes, thank you, Tamara.
I feel like these Friday meetings are worth it now.
Talking
Thank
about
you, Ryan. That's so
things
validating.
makes you so happy. So Ryan, are you leading the mission statement part of this agenda?
I believe that might be true.
All right.
I'll facilitate it, Ryan, and
Okay.
If you'd like, because
Thanks, Sarah. No, please.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know whether or not you were on board for that. So
I'm sorry. It's been a super busy week, so I could have missed an email or two.
That's no problem at all. So I'll facilitate this part, and then everybody, please jump in if I'm missing anything or anything like that. So can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So jumping in here. The mission statement ad hoc group met and reviewed different mission statements from other continuum of cares in the nation. And out of that, this here, what you're seeing is what the ad hoc work group drafted for starters. So let's go through first the 2 mission ideas. Let it all soak in, see if there's any additions to be made, kind of toss around words, have fun. And then from there, we'll kind of move on to the second phase, which is the vision, okay? So if you can all see sort of this highlighted area, the mission is to eradicate homelessness in the region through strategic partnerships that are impacting the root causes of homelessness and lessen the negative impact of homelessness on individuals, families, and the community, centering racial equity and other marginalized populations. Of course, keep in mind that this is not the mission statement yet, that the purpose of us really hammering this out today is just to make it a little more you guys. Aside from that, the group really liked the word galvanize. I remember that was like a, ooh, we like that word. The mission of the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care is to galvanize our community through strategic partnerships. And I imagine it's, you know, and the voices of those with lived experience are being utilized or something like that. Also, the group really liked from one of the CoCs sort of listing out, you know, what will be happening. So before we jump into that, the how and the why, what about this first or second mission statement idea really stands out to you? What do you like? What do you not like? And what are some additions? You can just yell them out to me.
For the third one, the mission of Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care is to galvanize our community through strategic partnerships and the voices of those with lived experience. It doesn't actually say what we're doing, which is trying to end homelessness. So if it was to galvanize, like the mission of the continuum is to reduce and end homelessness by galvanizing our community through strategic partnerships and the voices of those with lived experience.
I like that. So the mission of Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care is to galvanize our community to reduce and end homelessness through strategic partnerships. Is that what you said, Tamara?
Is to reduce and end homelessness by galvanizing.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, before galvanize.
Is to, thank you. Reduce and end homelessness to galvanize. No.
By galvanize.
I galvanize.
By, okay, thank you. It's Friday. By galvanizing.
Yes.
By galvanizing our community through strategic partnerships and the voices of those with lived experience. Great. Does that sound good now, Tamara?
Mm-hmm.
So I missed some of the earlier discussion. So if you just tell me, we already talked about that, Bruce. Can we put the word leadership in here? It's the mission of the CoC is to provide leadership to and galvanize the community. But I think that's, aren't we declaring we're the logical lead? I mean, and everybody's a leader, and we would do it with, we're not the only leader, everybody else is a leader, but we are also a leader. And so I think identifying, taking that role on is we're expected to provide, show the way.
So Sarah, I like that. I think maybe what I would say, that's a great suggestion, Bruce. So not where you're putting it in. To me, I was thinking the mission of the MAG CFC is to reduce in homelessness by being a leader in galvanizing our community. Is more what I was thinking, but I don't want to not speak for you, Bruce, but I think the leading and the galvanizing works real well together. Leading and galvanizing, and by leading,
Yeah,
a leader, something like that.
yeah, that's better because you can drop the by being out is to by leading and
By
galvanizing.
leading and galvanizing.
Yeah, this is Joan, to echo what Marcel just said, and Bruce, you lead and then you kind of turn behind you and say, hey, follow me. So I like that, leading and galvanizing together. That's good.
Mm-hmm. And maybe, you know, we can open it up and, you know, who is our target audience or customer of the organization? Does the mission provide an answer to what is our purpose or why you all exist? Just some questions to kind of get the brain juices flowing.
Can I add, Sarah? I think, I don't know if this was, I know you're taking notes. I think we were thinking taking out the by being. So the thought would be is to reduce and in homelessness.
By leading.
Yeah, by leading. There we go. And galvanizing.
Okay, thank you, Marshall.
Yeah, by leading. Yep, there we go. Leading. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what else is jumping out to folks? What works, what doesn't work? I hear more folks kind of leaning towards like the smaller statement down the second part.
So
I
it's
like having a
Marshall.
vision. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joan. Go ahead, or whoever was talking. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like the idea of having a vision and the mission. I don't, yeah.
Agree.
Yeah, and I was going to say that first. So the how or the why, see the mission. I know, at least I've always been taught missions are supposed to be somewhat easy to think to and speak. The first one, I like all that's in it in terms of eradicate, and we talked in there about racial equity and all of that. But I don't know if it quickly rolls off a tongue or it truly just succinctly captures. But I think there's some way, we need to build in here, not in a mission or a vision, but maybe it's our guiding principles or tenets or something that talk about racial equity, impacting the root cause of homelessness, that kind of thing.
I
think for
agree with
those
you on
of
that,
you-
Marshall. I think that makes sense. And sorry, you provided examples, Sarah, and I had a great time actually thinking about policy for a while. The stuff that was in the King County that referenced targeted universalism was not only in this, but as we start to break out goals and all that stuff, the professor from California who developed that, Dr. Powell from the Haas Institute for Fairness and for a Fair and Inclusive Society. Oh my God, it was a great read in terms of, you know, if you're talking about taking care of everybody and then calling out the need, absolute need for equity, it's, you know, how do you do that best? And he talked about laying it out as a way to have targeted strategies around equity that were really good. I recommend that to you all. It relates to what you were saying, that's kind of equity should stand out as something we're committed to as a strategy.
Yes.
Can I throw something out? What if we said, I like the mission of the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care is to reduce and end homelessness through leadership around homelessness, galvanizing our community. Wait a minute. Through leadership around homelessness that galvanizes our community, forms strategic partnerships and incorporates the voices of those with lived experience. I don't know, just some thoughts out there. It's not where I want it to be.
Yeah, because I think what's happening on the mission statement is we're trying to fill in a lot of what we are trying to say. And I think there's still got to be that breakout of, you know, a vision is real succinct and it's something that you can deliver. And the mission should be about the action that you're going to take. And then some of this language has to be kind of put into that values sort of place. Because I think we're trying to squeeze in a lot of stuff. And I think we've got to try and get as succinct as possible and still have kind of, you know, these three pieces: vision, mission, values.
That's an excellent point, Sam. And if it helps, I can remind of some of the big key things that kind of popped out, you know, as Bruce was saying, ensure equity. Folks really liked by serving as a trusted source through strategic partnerships and resources to provide solutions that ensure and sustain the stability of home. People with lived experience and data-driven decisions. Then there were these hot words that folks really liked that I can kind of remind you of. Really like trusted source, regional home for solutions, voice for data, galvanize, striving for more equitable outcomes, transcend, pioneer, person-centered, that was a big one, shared power with people with lived experience, that was a huge one at our last ad hoc that folks felt needed to be added. Voice for data, leveraging funding resources, strategic partnerships, and localized issues. Out of these four sort of pockets that folks came up with: innovation, leadership, data-driven funding, and listening and advocacy. Those were all the main areas that the ad hoc highlighted. So with that in mind, does anything kind of change for folks? Anything jump out? Go ahead and just call it out as it comes.
You reminded me, Sarah, when you went over that, one of the things I really loved, I'm so sorry, I'm going to sneeze.
It's okay.
Excuse me. Was that the piece about home. And I'm wondering if, I love the idea of being succinct up top and then having more of our values and metrics, if you will, below. And maybe those are a little bit different. You know, our values, who we are, speaking to how we want to go about our business, but being more about what we want to achieve. But I would love to bring that concept of home all the way up to the vision or mission, because I feel like it's an expressive kind of word or concept, and I would love for that to right away jump out up front, because it sort of evokes a feeling instead of, you know, your typical mission statement. We want to, you know, do. I'd love to get that sense of home right up front somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But just move it up.
Mm-hmm. Where, Ryan, do you think it would fit nicely?
Let's see here.
Are we committed to home for all people?
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm with
we are.
Jackie. It feels like it belongs in the vision. I don't know how to make that succinct because I am in love with its rare, brief, and non-reoccurring.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the semicolon is the inequities are eliminated and everyone has a home. I don't know. I don't know what
And
the words
everyone
are.
has a place to call home or something like that.
Yeah, yep. But it feels visionary. It feels like that's that big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
You know, we want everybody to have a home. That's a vision.
Yeah, I just added it back here so we can have eyes on it.
Yeah, just exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, and we can definitely go back and forth, mission and vision, whatever feels right.
And then I think those how or whys that you have in between vision, mission sort of belong down in our values and objectives or metrics or whatever you want to call them.
Kind of towards the bottom here.
So that we're, I don't know, everyone has said it, so that we're real clear up top, and then we get back into, if you know, if someone's reading beyond that, right, then it's about, well, this is how we're going to go about our work, and this is what we hope to achieve.
Yes. So then this can go back right here, Ryan.
Just moving, just trying to get things kind of in the right area so we can go through it.
For the vision, just wanting to throw out an idea for the group to consider. What do you think about having it something like Maricopa Regional Continuums of Care's vision is that everyone has a place to call home, period. When homelessness does occur, it will be rare, brief, non-reoccurring, and racial disparities and other inequities will be eliminated. So that you're putting that right up front and then saying that when it does occur, then we want to minimize the harm. Basically.
That's right, because our vision does not include homelessness, actually. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Great. Do folks like that? I think that sounds
Like
good.
it.
Okay.
I do. I like it.
Maricopa Regional. Yeah.
Hi, sorry, this is Joan, and I can't see it. I apologize, I'm driving, but the racial disparities exist even with, you know, not just in homelessness, but in home ownership. So I actually think we should put that before. Again, I don't know if it makes sense because I can't see it, but just wanted to call that out.
Right, so Joan, so you're saying that vision is everyone has a place to call home and racial disparities and other inequities are eliminated. And then when homeless does,
I see what you're saying.
Brief and or no?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't understand that was part of the vision conversation. Let me think on that. Let me think on that.
Bruce, it looked like you're about to jump in. Are you wanting to offer some feedback on that? You lean forward in a thoughtful way.
Sorry, I can't see folks, so holler or holler at me.
I'm censoring myself on the everybody has a place to call home. I mean, I
It's
really
too
like
fluffy
it.
for you.
And if I were giving a speech, I'd lead with that and be sensitive and all that. I wouldn't make that same presentation to the Board of Supervisors. You know what I mean? Because it'd just be more. And so maybe I've got too much government in my head right now. I like it a lot. I don't know if it's formal enough. I don't want to be overly formal either, but you know what I mean? It just.
Well, no, but I think it's a point well taken, Bruce. I mean, would it speak as effectively to all audiences? Right.
Right. Thank you. You said it better than I did, because yeah, some audiences it would absolutely fit for the people we're trying to help and the people who are out there every day working with those folks and all that. But for policymakers, you know, they get off into weird, different values and perspectives about. So government's role is to make sure everybody has a home, and you go like, no, it doesn't say that. It's anyhow, maybe that's too much of a government lens, but that was my reaction.
No, thank you for sharing that, Bruce. I appreciate it. I think it's important to get different perspectives included in the conversation.
So I think a vision statement can be aspirational or should be aspirational. And does it change it at all to say that everyone deserves a place to call home, or does that still keep it in that questionable realm?
What are folks thinking? Everyone deserves. Does deserve have a?
In terms of thinking of the audience of folks that don't necessarily think that, you know, government's role is to provide for everything, I think the word deserves is probably a trigger because there's that notion of people needing to earn, or, you know, people reaping what they sow, sort of. I still am a fan of a place to call home, but I like the mushy. So, but the deserves probably goes a bit too far for me, even just in terms of that will spark a conversation with those folks every time.
Right. You know, and part of what we have on our agenda too is that this doesn't necessarily need to be etched in stone in this meeting, because an option for the board to consider is that this could be shared with different folks for feedback. So it could be shared with the subcommittees, the committee, and so different folks could have some input to that. And so that might be a chance to vet kind of different word choices and different concepts.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way Ryan said it was great. Maybe my reaction was also thinking like, I want to have a vision and mission statement where people go, that's inspiring, you know, not like saying, well, really, that leads to some question, debate, some pause. It should be like, you know, a great thing that doesn't lead to debates.
For me, Bruce, that everyone should have a place to call home does not state whose role it is. So I feel safe in that the vision is that everybody gets to go home at night, right? Doesn't say who or why or how, just that at the end of the day, everybody's got somewhere to go.
I see in the chat, Tamara put something around the effect of housing is a right, just stating it, or what if the goal was everyone in Maricopa region has a place to call home?
I saw that you put that up there, so that in the vision, everyone has a place to call home, mm-hmm. and that homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring in our region.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce, do you have another idea of something that would be, because I think the goal of that statement is to have that inspirational piece, another something that would be inspirational that might not be so pejorative.
Yeah, and even the home, I was thinking about, like, somebody's gonna say, oh, well, really, prisoners, people who committed murder, is that what we're saying, is their prison their home? And it's just like, that's a distraction and it's ridiculous. So I mean, really, I mean, you get too many great, there's plenty of room for taglines in all this too, that, you know, we could have a formal mission statement and have some short summary kind of statements like taglines as part of our document.
Yeah.
Because I like it. It's just whether it's.
Could it be that when we're in more formal settings, we would pull out the mission, and when we're in more, you know, inspirational settings, we would be able to pull out the vision, which is a little more.
Yeah.
Is it too jargony to say that our vision is that our region achieves functional zero in homelessness? I mean, that speaks to the idea of it being homelessness being rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. We've got a way to handle it.
I have to do a 3 or 5 minute explanation every time I use the word functional zero.
Yeah, that's a community solutions specific phrase. We came up with that functional zero statement.
It's a good one.
It is.
Is it copywritten? No, I'm just kidding.
No, but if it was there, then that means that you would want to be achieving the community solutions definition of functional zeros. I'm assuming that's what you're meaning. That we're housing more people than are entering our system.
Yes.
One of the questions to consider with all of this is who's the audience, and particularly as or if the board is expanding its outreach and incorporating more diverse perspectives who don't necessarily have a social services background. We just may want to consider if the language is accessible to everybody.
Great.
This is really great. What are other folks thinking? Did we agree that a safe place to call home is something we'd like to keep here in this vision statement?
Would that make it a little less I don't know what the word is.
Controversial?
Yeah, when you add in the safe. Yeah, a safe place to call home, because now we're basically sort of talking about the human right aspect of it versus the whether or not somebody's earned something or not.
Yes.
Just a thought.
Maricopa Regional Continuum.
We could leave it. Can you Sarah, close that chat box, because
oh, can you see the chat?
Yeah.
It
just blocks your document.
Oh my. Okay.
Unless it's just my chat box. Or maybe it's mine. It's mine. Sorry. It was like,
okay.
Brian,
I love you.
I can't see anything. Sorry.
No worries.
Oh goodness. Okay. Yeah, I like the safe place to, maybe we can just hang with that for a little while, and we can always noting we need to come back up to it because everyone's not comfortable.
Great. Do we want to go back to the mission for a minute and see if anything kind of popped up? Right now, we've got the mission of Maricopa Regional Continuum Care is to reduce and end homelessness through leadership around homelessness.
I'm concerned about reduce and end. Like, which one is it? Like, I know what the controversy is, right? But ultimately, we're ending it for each person one at a time, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that the goal is ever just to reduce it.
I agree.
And is this the one where it's through leadership that galvanizes our community?
I like that.
Yeah.
I like the word galvanizes our community forging strategic partnerships and incorporating the voices of those with lived experience.
I can't help but also think that the strategic partnerships thing absolutely belongs somewhere, but I'm wondering if that's in the house versus the mission. Like the mission for me is not to have a strategic partnership. That is absolutely part of our methodology to get there.
Yeah.
No doubt, but I'm not sure if that piece belongs in the mission.
Okay, great. What are other folks thinking? Do we have agreement on that to move it through strategic partnerships towards maybe some of this, how we're going to do it? Anybody else?
It's tough because I keep thinking about how this is going to get used and where it's going to be. And even to that point, like almost how often, right? Like, you know, like this is on a website, it's in a grant, it's, you know, where we're trying to find funding or, you know, like it sort of goes back to that audience kind of piece of it. And if it's important for us to say that we're going to have strategic partnerships because we're going to focus on funding and we're going to need strategic partnerships to get funding, then I'm like, keep it. If it's, you know, I don't think moving it down to the bottom is a bad thing either. I just don't know, will we have an opportunity to use those value statements or, you know, in some sort of way. So I just want to make sure we're focused on the language that we need to have in order to kind of meet the work that we're trying to do, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I feel like galvanizes our communities, like implies that we're partnering with Hope.
Like it is. Mm-hmm. I can see that.
So I feel like it's a little bit repetitive and not as clear cut as we would like it to be, but like leadership, I was thinking leadership that galvanizes our community and incorporates the voices of those with lived experience. And I'm not even sure if it's just voices as I think about it. It's not just their voices, it's.
Didn't we use guidance at one
they
point?
think works.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ryan. I feel like just saying incorporating the voices of lived experience isn't what we're trying to do here. They should be leading this with us.
Right. So how do we turn that phrase around somehow?
There was a great mention of shared
what if
power
it's-
with, yeah.
Or and is guided by those, like what if we are following those with lived experience, would that galvanizes our community, like I'm just, and is guided by those with lived experience or something like that, or solutions are guided, where solutions are guided by those with lived experience, or I'm just playing.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
Would it be wrong to just say the lived experience part of it? Like guided through lived experience? I don't know, like do we have to say, do we have the people of the lived experience?
It's like we want them with us. They should be leading with us. They are leading with us.
And
probably don't listen to them as much as we should, I feel like.
Leading alongside.
How do we not separate them from us though, but still make sure that it's very clear that that's the muse, if you will, that has to be the first stop. Like if that box isn't checked, then you might as well not move forward on that potential, on whatever you're working on. If it doesn't work for people who have the experience, then, go back and try again.
And like Tamara was saying, the shared power. Here, if you can see in green, shared power, people with lived experience.
Sarah, I don't know if you've seen Jackie's comment about Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care provides critical leadership to galvanize our region to end homelessness.
Hmm.
And then Tamara had offered some really good information from Austin, their mission, vision, and then philosophy of service, which might be like our values.
Philosophy of service. I love that.
I know.
Ooh, look at that. Affirm that people are experts in their own circumstances and couple their experience with data to inform our system.
Ooh.
Wow.
Do we-
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm like, all of it's really powerful.
I think speaks to some of the stuff that Bruce was talking about. Our mission is to provide dynamic, proactive leadership that engages policymakers and the community to end homelessness. Like there you go. That's the goal, right? Our vision is a community fiercely focused on ending homelessness. I love that.
Yeah.
Philosophy of service, support people in the context of their circumstances, recognize and honor their experiences, dignity, knowledge, aspirations, and ability to overcome adversity. Affirm that people are experts in their own circumstances and couple their expertise with data to inform our system.
Ooh, nice.
I know, seek diverse voices and unique perspectives in order to best serve our community.
Ooh.
These are like, can we just, I mean,
Can we just cut and paste?
Can we just cut and paste these?
Yeah.
Whose is this again, Tamara?
This is Austin. It's amazing.
Whoa. Okay. Okay. Let's just see it on paper.
Yeah. Can you copy it and?
Sort of.
Beautiful.
It's ugly, but I'll make it prettier as we go. And I'll make this a different color just so we don't get it. Our mission is for dynamic, proactive leadership that engages policymakers and the community to end homelessness. And then our vision is a community fiercely focused on ending homelessness. Fiercely is just a great word to use. Okay. Just kind of making this look a little prettier. Okay, cool. So this is here what Tamara shared. Thank you so much, Tamara.
You're welcome.
It's really.
Any of this jump out, or should we just, or this is it? Let's just, how are folks feeling? And then, of course, keeping in mind what Jackie said, provides critical leadership to galvanize our region to end homelessness.
Could we sort of try to pair some of this with where we were going and in that way, grab the pieces that we love that they hit and incorporate the pieces that we love that we came up with?
Yes, yes, fire away. Excited doggy.
Sorry.
Yeah, that sounds great, Ryan. Let me know where you want me to put things and I'd be happy to. I know that.
I feel like there's totally ways to steal this without like blatant plagiarism. I don't even know if it's plagiarism, but moving the words around, like the mission of Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care is to end homelessness through dynamic leadership that engages our community and relevant stakeholders to end homelessness. Or no, we already had to end homelessness at the beginning. What did I say? Mission is to, yep.
Our mission is to end homelessness through dynamic, proactive leadership. Do you like that? Or just, did you say just dynamic leadership? Because that sounds great too.
Our mission is to end homelessness through dynamic, proactive leadership that engages the community and relevant stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
Sorry, please don't judge my.
Are there any irrelevant stakeholders? Or
please don't judge me.
I think just stakeholders, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Through so engages the community through stakeholders.
Engages the community and stakeholders.
Yeah.
How about diverse stakeholders?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Even better.
Diverse stakeholders and policymakers.
I'd scratch.
And then the rest can be deleted.
And policymakers, period.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. How does this sit with folks? If we like it, I'll make it another color. Our mission is to end homelessness through dynamic, proactive leadership that engages the community and diverse stakeholders and policymakers.
I guess
Let's-
we have too many ands. But
With
yeah.
Can we put our
racial-
galvanizes word that we like so much back in there instead of engages?
yeah. Oh, yes. That galvanizes.
And
Galvanizes.
take
yeah.
away the, yes, that galvanizes the community, comma, take away the and, then have diverse stakeholders and policymakers.
Great, thank you, Jackie. Our mission is to end homelessness through dynamic, proactive leadership that galvanizes the community, diverse stakeholders, and policymakers.
Maybe we don't need dynamic. Maybe we just, I really like the I'm not sure what dynamic means other than, I mean, that could be, but proactive, I know it like that. In terms of, as it honestly refers to how we work, dynamic, maybe it's referring to innovative perhaps, but the proactive is like gets in front of, doesn't wait for. I like that concept. I'm not sure if we need the dynamic.
And do we want to add something here around, so that everyone may have a safe home or something to that home effect again that you wanted to bring in?
I think that's what goes
That's in the vision, right? Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
and maybe we leave our vision alone. I don't think we could easily copy a community fiercely focused on ending homelessness.
Right.
That's pretty unique.
So how is this sitting with folks? Anything to add? Anything to take out? Do we love it?
Can you scroll up just a little bit so I could see the original mission?
Yeah.
Because I think did we want to include?
Now I kind of miss the dynamic. I'm looking at words that might speak to it. Enlightened.
And then here's our hot words again, if we need any inspiration.
Oh, let's look for look at our hot words.
Innovation, no.
I like the dynamic. I just think it speaks to us definitely having borrowed it.
I thought I heard somebody call out a word or something.
Revolutionary.
Ooh. Whoa. That's a great word.
What about strategic?
Ooh,
Strategic.
Yes, of course. Through strategic proactive leadership. Is that?
I would just say strategic leadership.
How do folks feel about that? Taking away proactive.
I think I like proactive better than.
Okay. Through strategic proactive leadership that galvanizes the community, diverse stakeholders, and policymakers.
It's better with both. Maybe we just have a comma after strategic.
Strategic, proactive leadership. How does this feel? And for our audience, as Amy said, keeping that in mind, are they going to be able to read this and feel warm and fuzzy on the inside in the same way that it makes us feel? I always got to bring the cheese to the meeting, so. Any other thoughts?
Good, I like it.
Okay. That's what I like to hear. Any other thoughts?
I'm concerned about we're separating the community from diverse stakeholders and policymakers. If you look at
I don't. So the part that I like about having community in there is because that incorporates the people with lived experience, all of our like neighbors, people that aren't really in this work, but it's like it's more encompassing
and
rather than just people in this sector. you know, like rather than just nonprofits and policymakers, it's like my neighbor who doesn't know anything about homelessness is also galvanized and in this, you know, maybe that's more of the vision for me than it is for the mission.
Well, that's a good point, Tamara. And with that, would it be galvanizes our community of diverse stakeholders and policymakers, or the community?
I like that too. What do you guys think?
I like that better. The word strategic, where it's placed, almost makes me feel like we're trying to get something by somebody.
I always try and avoid pronouns.
Huh?
I try to avoid pronouns because they can be confused. I like the community, but either one's fine.
Through strategic, innovative.
I was thinking maybe just switch proactive and strategic.
Yes.
Or innovative,
Switch.
a way to say it that wouldn't feel quite as.
And does it help if we say that through proactive leadership that strategically galvanizes our community? Does that help or no?
Yeah, that would be nice.
Strategically galvanizes our community.
I guess I'm still feeling like the strategic piece probably belongs further down, but I can live with it.
We could put that as a value. I mean, we've got strategic partnerships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily have to have it in both places necessarily.
Yeah.
It's true.
We delete strategically.
I think galvanizes has more power by itself.
Yeah. I just feel like the word strategic is used all the time. Like I used to have a game when somebody would say it on a call, like not like a drinking game, but like if she says strategic one more time.
How does this look? Removing strategic or strategically to end homelessness through proactive leadership that galvanizes. Because galvanizing it, you have to be strategic in order to galvanize.
Right, I agree. I like it.
I like it better. Yeah.
Okay, great. Anybody? Yep.
Great.
Okay, so should we just let this sit for a minute, kind of soak it in and move on to the vision?
Do we want to work on the value piece of it and then maybe go back and see if we're starting to align all of the things?
That's a great idea. We do have a values poll if you're ready for some fun. I take that silence as a yes. Okay. Okay. David, cue the poll, please. David's our IT guy. Thanks, David. Okay, so are you all seeing the poll that just popped up on your screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So what we need everyone to do is to choose 5 goals. And you'll see, David, actually mine is not allowing me to vote. Mine is only showing percentages right now.
Your co-host.
Oh, that's why. Okay, so I'll just use your imagination.
Yeah.
That's okay. Okay, cool. So what you all should see is 3 different areas of words that you all identified as being at one of our last ad hocs as being very important words of value. So if everybody could go through those 3 areas and make sure you choose 5. And in those areas, if you don't see a word that you want to choose, you have to choose something in the area. So you'll notice the very bottom one says none in this list. So you choose that one if you don't see a word that looks great for you. Does that make sense?
Could it be up to 5, Sarah?
Yes. Yes, up to 5.
5 overall, not 5 in each area.
That's correct. Thank you, David. Any questions about the poll?
Yeah, I have 5 selected, but it's not letting me submit.
Did you,
I got it. Sorry.
okay.
Yeah, you have to select none in this list if you don't select one in that group.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
So like there are 3 questions.
There are right, 3 separate polls. I don't know. Right now, I can just see one. Is there a way to show the words that appear in all 3?
You have to scroll down with your mouse so that you can see
Thank you.
all of them. Oh, sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, so in order to see all 3 parts, you need to be able to scroll down, and please choose only 5 in total.
Oh, a
But-
total of 5 among the 3 questions, Sarah?
Yes, so yes, a total of 5 among the 3 questions. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't explain that very well.
It's broken out into 3 questions just because we couldn't fit all of them in one poll, so or in one
Okay.
question. So we wanted to include all of the words that the board had identified.
Yes, and if one of the parts has no words that really mean anything to you, then just hit none in this list on the bottom, and then just scroll on down and choose more that work for you. Does anybody else have any questions about this? Is it working okay? 2 of 8 people have voted. No pressure.
It's not necessarily, we're not necessarily looking for 8 because MAG staff aren't voting necessarily. It would just be the board members, I think, right?
Oh, yes, very true. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 board members. Okay. Great, the votes are coming in. Okay, all votes are in. Excellent. Great, thank you for sharing the results, David. Can everybody see the results now? So I'll just call it out. Here. So data driven was a big one. Data driven got 83% of the vote. 83%. Let's see what else we're working with.
Inclusive got 50.
Inclusive got 50. Solutions focused got 67.
Oh, you're scrolling on down, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then what was that one you said, Jackie? Sorry.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't see them all. All I can see is the number 1 question.
So the top
You
5.
can scroll, Jackie.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should be.
Oh, I can scroll?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Top 5 values that board members liked are data driven, solutions focused, excellence, adaptive, and nimble. Whoa. Okay, so I'm gonna write those down.
Actually, I think equitable outcomes was 50%.
Yeah, it's just not showing up.
The red ones are just showing on the bottom on part 3. The red ones are 33% because they're broken into a separate question. But equitable outcomes in number 2 is actually 50%.
Thank you so much.
And then it
As
looks
is
like
inclusive.
So was inclusive,
inclusive,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks for helping me, guys. Okay, inclusive. So data driven is an absolute inclusive. Equitable
And-
outcomes.
I mean, there's sort of the same thing too. Equitable outcomes and inclusive, to me, those 2 statements kind of go together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like 5 of them tied at 33%.
Okay, so some of those tiebreakers are adaptive,
Excellence.
excellence,
Nimble.
nimble.
And shared power. So people
Yes.
with experience have decision-making power.
Thank you. Shared power.
And urgency.
What was that one, David?
Urgency was also at
Urgency.
33%.
Thank you. Okay. So we have more than 5, but this at least gives us.
What does equitable outcomes mean to people?
I have that same question. I'm not sure.
To me, it means that outcomes are more in line with our population structure rather than having, like, for example, our Black population is, I can't remember the exact numbers, so I'm going to make them up, but it was like 11% of our population in Maricopa County, but yet like 35% of our homeless population.
It's
Okay.
4.
You're talking about race equity then, racial equity.
Yeah.
To me, it feels like you're talking about that fence analogy, right? If that picture, when you look at equitable and what the difference is between equitable and equal, you know, and when you're equitable, everybody gets the size step to see the same amount over the fence. That's equitable. So I think that's the kind of that outcome that we're looking for.
That's super helpful.
Very
I
helpful
didn't
to
think
me
of that,
too.
and that makes a lot more sense to me now.
Equitable could also be, yes, race, but also other intersectionalities that are not of privilege, such as LGBTQ community
100%.
or those who are differently abled, or
In our case, there's still seniors and vets and, you know, different
Yeah.
populations that we're considering, families.
Yes. Any other thoughts or questions about these top 5 values? Data-driven, solutions-focused, equitable outcomes, adaptive, excellence. And then we also have shared power. What percentage was shared power? I feel like that one was a big one. 33%. Shared power, nimble, and urgency. Okay.
So are nimble and adaptive the same or similar?
Yeah, kinda, yes.
It almost feels like urgency is in that same sort of, like we're trying to get to things quickly. But, so I don't know. That's like adaptive, nimble. I keep thinking like which things are similar.
Yes. Solutions focused. Sorry. Okay. Any of this really kind of inspire us now? I wish I could do multiple screens. Maybe I could. To add now to our mission or vision, or what do we want to do with these value words? I guess I should ask. Do we want to create a statement for each of them? Do we want to combine them together? Do we want to list them?
Do you want me to stop sharing the results now, Sarah?
Sure. Thanks so much, David. Appreciate it.
Right, because this is how, these are the things, these are the ways that we're getting these things done. These are the things that we find important, the things that we're going to lean on as we get this work done. So it definitely feels like they got to have an explanation so that when we do share it, everybody's on the same page. They know what we mean by equitable outcome. They know what we mean by, you know, solutions focused, like they know. So it feels like we do need a statement for each.
Need to define each.
I also am not sure they're all values. I think they might be methodology, some
strategies.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Ryan.
Tamara, you have to take a drink. The strategies was just mentioned. Just make sure you're.
So these
or maybe guiding principles, maybe.
Yeah.
Does that feel better? Guiding principles?
I still think our values are like values or philosophy are more sort of around the things that Austin had talked about, how we feel that more our sensitivities, if you will. You know, support people in context of their circumstances, recognize and honor their experiences, seek diverse voices. But these other things are more like action, you know, how we would like to take action, the way we will go about our business.
Yes.
Like our drivers in a way.
Right.
And so it's really up to all of you on what you want
I guess
to
they
do.
can be called values too.
Yeah, with these guiding principles or values. Do you want to include them in the charter? And how would you like to accomplish or tackle this next part? Should we really hammer it out now and use this time now? Or should we have an ad hoc work group where we can continue to build this out? What are folks hoping or thinking? Because we are open, it's your time.
I think if we hope to get to the rest of our agenda, we should probably pass this along to a group, unless we want to use this time to do this and then, you know, commit to, you know, putting the rest of the agenda on another meeting. But I guess my personal preference, although I can live with it either way, would be to get to the rest of our agenda and hit the rest of this on another. I think we've done a good amount of work on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the next part of the agenda is really, you know, what are the policies related? What are the policy related strategies and goals that you want to achieve to reach your vision and your mission? So, you know, and how you all want to accomplish that. So it really depends on how folks are feeling here. Tamara?
Yeah, I think it's definitely would have to do with our committee structure and seats that we're having and how the community is bubbling up what work needs to be done and how we can listen and support and clear the path for that work to be done.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Is that what we want to focus on right now?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like it's important though, because I do keep getting emails from some of our committee members that want to be able to start really working on things and feel like the board, because we're working on this, they feel like they're not able to. And so I just wanted to throw that out there and see if we can't come to some sort of agreement on how they can start really driving the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what are some thoughts from other members on how you'd like to, you know, not only tackle the policy related strategies and goals, but also like what Tamara said, look at ad hoc work groups that are based off of your priorities and the community's priorities. What would those be? If we want to jump into that right now, Amy and Brandy, would that be okay if we did that? Or?
Absolutely, if that's the direction that the board wants to go in. And a question, Tamara, and for the group, with the ad hoc work groups, is the board wanting to guide the direction or creation of ad hoc work groups as work comes up, like let's say through the committee, or are you wanting the committee to bring recommendations to the board around areas that they feel like ad hoc work should be, they should come together to do ad hoc work around? So kind of how is the board thinking that they want that to play out? Are you wanting to develop your strategic goals first and then form ad hoc groups around those? Or are you wanting ideas to kind of bubble up as they come up in different groups and meetings?
And to kind of add to that, you know, the new member recruitment, it's sort of the chicken or the egg thing, right? Do you want to bring on new members before figuring out what ad hoc work groups, you know, what works best for folks? Because I do understand the urgency that Tamara is expressing. So yes, please tell us how you want to go about it, and that shall be.
Well, it seems to me that we, as part of the regional planning, there's when we look at the strategies, there's a lot of really some specific things that could be addressed. The group could be working on, but also, I mean, it's a big talented group of folks too. They ought to, if they have a list of policy issues, it would be great to see the list, what they think is important. And not like changing that form to increase the number of boxes, but like what kind of big pieces would they like to address? I think we ought to respect them for that and let them propose to us.
Yeah, it feels, go
ahead.
It feels like we've got the work that was sort of coming together from the race equity. We've got the regional collaborative coming up with these 5 things. I think we still have other municipalities that are thinking through, like Tempe kind of launched their strategic initiatives behind homelessness. So I think there's some strategies even from municipalities that we need to sort of pay attention to. And I'm missing something else. Oh, I can't even remember. I didn't take notes. This is why I need to take notes everywhere. I was listening to the committee meeting, and they voted for some sort of work group that they wanted to bring to the board, and I don't remember what it was. So it feels like we're getting
move on.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of work. Like there's a lot of things to consider. And there's probably a lot of like breakouts when you think about affordable housing, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing. Like it feels like there's a lot of even nuance to the work. So it's, I think we've got to figure out what we're capable of, what makes sense for us to do, because we can't take on all of the things. Where is it going to be important for us to put our efforts with the buy-in, even from the committee members. It almost feels like I wish we could if we had a whiteboard again, it's like we could at least look at everything and try and bucket all of the stuff that seems to be coming to the surface in terms of the things that need to get done.
And same with the committee. I know that they want to work on when the eviction moratorium ends, having a strategy around that, because I'm not sure that we have one. And so empowering them to be able to do that, I think is very important. And other work that might bubble up like that because they're closer to the work than we are.
What work might the committee do around the eviction moratorium ending? I
think they're looking at, like, for example, in the veteran space, they're looking at how much SSVF can provide for prevention, how much they can pay, and if they can't, what other resources are there. It's really just getting ahead of people that might be behind and coming up with a strategy around that, making sure that back rent gets paid so they don't get evicted. That would be, I think that's, from my understanding, that would be what they're strategizing around.
Mm-hmm. So what type of process would you all like to move forward with this? Is this something that, you'd like to identify now what maybe you as a board, your goals might be, and then also find a way to, like you said, sort of poll the committee and the community to see what their priorities might be as well. So how would you all like to tackle this, and what timeline would be best for you too? Is that us setting up an ad hoc for next week and busting it out? What does this process look like to get this done in the way that you'd like to see it done?
Amy, when will once you've kind of finished all of these meetings and you have all of the stuff gathered, like that, those kind of 5 sort of draft goals that you guys have so far, like when do you kind of feel like that process will be finished in a way?
Right. No, thanks. And just really do want to emphasize the board's role in all of that work. So we will be coming to you every single month, and we're happy to communicate with you in between meetings, weekly, just whatever basis works best for you. And so when we're talking about eviction moratoriums and strategies around that, I think it'd be great to be really integrated in those efforts, so if the committee's coming up with a strategy, then hey, let's take a look at how that fits into the regional portfolio, for example. In terms of the timing on that, we are starting to develop the criteria that would be used to prioritize those strategies. We have a strategy team meeting. So if you remember, we talked about that at your last board meeting, and Eric Cole had offered to serve as the liaison from the board with that strategy team. So this month then we'll start to prioritize the strategies, and then really deepen those in April, and then those will come before you for approval in May. Originally, we talked about them coming before you in April, but we'll certainly come before you in April to talk about what those strategies are, to get your input. But we want to make sure that you had as much time as possible really to be able to weigh in. So then we'll be back again in May. So then March, we'll go to the MAG Management Committee, Continuum of Care Regional Board, and then the Regional Council as well. So May is when those strategies would be approved. And then June, we start the implementation plan. August, the implementation plan then would be approved as well. And then in the fall, if you recall from the last board meeting, we had talked about the timeline then for the regional plan to end homelessness, which the board would be driving still. That would start in the fall, and then potentially be finished by next June. So there's just many opportunities for the board really to lead this work, to be engaged in this work. So that's the timeline that we're looking at right now, and appreciate any feedback or questions that you might have on that. So we're not too far off from having some areas identified really where ongoing work groups would be very helpful.
So could we use the next 4 weeks to ask the committee themselves to start the ball rolling? Like what issues would they like to tackle? And they may support the portfolio and the strategies. Let's ask them, and maybe they can come to the April meeting and walk us through their list. I'd like to hear from them and what they're doing. That would be really great. So, and then by May, we'll have a clearer sense of where we're going with the strategies. So there may be things we want to add to them, but I think we use April to figure out what they'd like to be doing. That would be good, especially if, as Tamara said, they're waiting. So there may be some low-hanging fruit that we would go like, well, of course that's good, and just do that,
Well, and I'm sorry, I'm having like a low blood sugar moment there. I sort of tuned out there for a minute, had to get something. There's some things that they've been working really hard on that I feel like they're just waiting to do, and I feel like we need to give them permission to do that. Regardless of what our strategies are. These have been strategies that have been in process. So can we give them some latitude to do that while we then start talking about our new strategies moving forward?
Right. And so one example of that is Move On. And the Move On work was discussed at the committee meeting, and that is moving forward.
Okay, great.
So at least we're not aware, and we really do rely on your feedback with this, but we're not aware of any strategies that they're wanting to move on that they're being told that they can't move on right now. So just wanted to reflect that back to the group. I mean, if there are issues that people are, being told, no, you can't do it, please let us know, because we're not aware of what that is. And I'm not sure who would be telling them no.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, and I wish
I still want to hold them up since they've been working.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely.
I know every time I go to one of their meetings, I'm like, oh wow, like why am I not more aware of this? And it's my fault. I'm not blaming anyone. I feel like sometimes I should go to their meetings and listen because they're doing really good work.
Mm-hmm. And I know Tamara had to jump off for a second to grab a call. I'm sure she would probably chime in at this point. So what I'm hearing is that from the majority, and please tell me if I didn't catch it correctly, is folks are wanting to check in with the committee, give them, about a month or so, have them compile their list of immediate ad hocs that they would like to propose. And then by the April board meeting, we can have, them present on their list and why those ad hocs are important. Is that what I'm hearing correctly? That was Bruce's great idea.
That for sure. And then how did that connect to us move? Were we talking about, sorry, this is that moment where I missed it. Were we also talking about trying to figure out how our next strategies get to them?
Right, how their work would align with the regional strategies.
Yeah, because everything we're saying is about leading and sharing power and leadership. And I feel like it has to go both directions. We should give them some things we'd like them to work on, and they should give some things that they'd like us to work on or they'd like to work on.
Absolutely. And the April timeframe works really well for both of those purposes.
Okay.
So April gives the committee enough time to identify the areas that they would like to be engaged. And then by then we'll also have a fairly firm idea. I mean, it won't be confirmed yet, but we'll have a very good idea of what that regional portfolio looks like in terms of the strategies. And then it gives you an opportunity to say, okay, we support or we don't support, hopefully you do, support these strategies. And these are the work groups that we think will be important to move this work forward. That goes through for approval in May. And then we turn to the implementation plan. So April might be a really good intersection of feedback between the regional strategies, the feedback from the committee, and then that puts the board in a really good position to be able to look at people's time and resources, because we're all incredibly busy in our primary jobs. And having work group meetings and things like that absorbs more time and energy that people have. So there may be an opportunity to prioritize some of the work at that point as well.
And I'm not sure when the right time is or how we get to this next piece, but there's definitely some things that have been in the back of my mind that I would like to propose to either the committee or to ourselves to work on, or to learn. For me, it would start with learning more. So I really need to check a lot of my assumptions. I'm sure they're not correct. I'm sure my learning is outdated in terms of not being on the ground all the time. But like coordinated entry, for instance, is something I would like to learn a lot more about and then have a really full discussion about, because I think any direction we move forward is I don't want to say totally dependent, but largely impacted by how well our coordinated entry system is working. And I know there's lots of really good people doing really hard work. That coordinated entry is really hard work, having to make horrible decisions on a day-to-day basis about who gets what is no fun. But I would love to have a better understanding about that and make sure that it's working as smoothly and adaptably as we would like to see it working, so that when we want to move and be solutions focused, like I saw in our values, we want to be solutions focused, we want to have a sense of urgency. None of that can happen without our coordinated entry system working well. So I would like to look at that sooner rather than later. Like, it would be one of my top priorities personally.
Mine too. I agree.
And
So
I
Ryan,
need some learning.
Oh.
No, I just
How would that
want to
look?
put that out there, that I need an education.
Okay, that's awesome and fine. I would love to be in them on that too, just for fun. But Ryan, how would that, and Bruce, how would that look? How would that learning look? Would that be, how would that immersion take place? Would that be a training from the, from the CE subcommittee? What would fulfill you?
I guess I would want to ask them, like, okay, you've got a board who's really interested in understanding more about how you work. Maybe it would start with a presentation by them, and then maybe it would be some hands-on looking at it. And then, of course, I think each of us, and I think I'd want to do some outreach too. We all have at least I have like areas where I find it challenging for the teams that I work with, right? So I know there's some issues there. I don't know why there are the issues. And I'm sure everybody from their own pieces of work have those. And so, how do we ask those questions? How do we start addressing some of those areas so that it can work for everybody really well?
And I think it's how do we eliminate, if we're going to operate with a sense of urgency, how do we ensure broader access literally throughout the region to coordinated entry than we have now? I'm speaking from the family side, so I'm not speaking from the single side, just my own experience.
And how do we do this in a way that is not threatening to anybody? Because the last thing I want to do, and I feel like it ends up like this every time, and I don't want this, is the last thing, you know, we accidentally you know, put on the defensive people who are doing all this work, which is not our intention, because we don't understand why it's so difficult. If we did, you know, it wouldn't be so difficult. So how do we do it in a way that is inclusive and respectful and open and, you know?
Well, don't we just start with, I agree that there's sensitivity around this discussion, but I think we got to eliminate that and say, like, the system's underfunded, that we don't have a youth. What's the youth coordinated entry? That's not figured out yet, right? We're not 24/7. I mean, we got we got a lot of, the emperor's got a lot, very scantily clothed. So we just admit that we all own that problem. So given that, and we'll get at two of the strategies related to evaluating or looking at coordinated entry. I thought we have a consultant, don't we, looking at coordinated entry? I thought we'd get that, and then
I don't think we do.
Our racial equity consultants have highlighted coordinated entry as being one of the 4 action.
Okay.
So yeah, so would this be, because what I hear is just really looking at the system and seeing what can be improved. So would that be, you know, possibly looking at the agreement, you know, or you know, but I understand what you're saying, because it can, you know, there can be some how do I say, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or make them feel like we're, you know, oversight and we're not happy, but we still, Amy?
I mean, I think there's opportunities though, because I think if the conversation is how do we better support and how do we strengthen coordinated entry, then I think everyone's invested in that question, including the people delivering coordinated entry. Because coordinated entry isn't about any one agency, it's about the whole system, it's about the flow. Right. And so there's multiple elements of responsibility and opportunity there. So I think if we frame it in terms of, we want to hear from people who are doing coordinated entry, who are hosting those sites, and find out from them, hey, what would you like to improve? It's very much a two-way conversation or multiple-way conversation. So I think with the framing, I think that we'll be able to have a really constructive conversation. And this is an area that's really ripe for opportunity. It's a critical point in our system, and I think everyone's invested in making sure that it's operating as efficiently as possible, and we're implementing lessons learned along the way.
So since I was wrong about the consultants, maybe we, following up on what you just said, Amy, maybe we just ask the providers, the 2 coordinated, ask you, Mom, and the campus, what are their lists of, what are the problems? Let us know, not minutia, system level problems. So I just said inadequately funded. I assume they're going to say that. But you know, they could expand more around the 24/7 idea. Maybe there's technology problems. Maybe, I don't know. So what's their, not a book, a list, right? And what would they think is most important? And then we can look at that and we can weigh in and give our own opinions on that. But yeah, let's ask them what they think the system gaps are.
Mm-hmm.
And get that in early April. So it can inform everything we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Tamara just mentioned, and we need feedback from people with lived experience who are in coordinated entry as well.
And we did have Focus Strategies review coordinated entry a few years ago, and I'm not sure that we've made the improvements that they suggested.
Can I put Brandy on the spot for a minute and ask about that, to kind of answer Tamara's question about why that may be sat?
For the coordinated entry strategies, that's a great question. I know that there was some work on kind of a deep dive into coordinated entry and what kind of the strengths and opportunities were, and it was presented to the board And I'm not sure why it, those strategies didn't go anywhere from there. I think it was informative, but it would be good to revisit those recommendations that came out of that. So as a first step, we could reroute that report back out to the board. You could become familiar with it again. And then in addition to that, or at the same time as that, like Amy and Bruce were just suggesting, inviting the coordinated entry providers to come to the board and to provide some insights on what they feel like the strengths are, what the opportunities are, and then to have a conversation engaging with them around how the board can support them to achieve their goals, which would also be the board's goals in improving coordinated entry. So I can dig that report up and route that out to the board. I'll send it to you, Sarah, so you have a copy of that.
Great. So would that
How
look?
good was that, Brant? I'm forgetting our various reports. I mean, sometimes we get reports that say, this is, inadequately funded, like tell us stuff we already know, or get so specific that, what was your assessment of that?
It did provide some specifics. Frankly, I would need to become familiar with it again, Bruce, myself. But it did provide specifics in addition to some overall type of systematic improvements. But I will reroute that out to everyone in the board so that we can all become familiar with it. I think it was produced. Well, the systems analysis report was done in 2018, and then I believe the coordinated entry report was done after that. So the two kind of pieces work in tandem.
And Julia,
I think that would be great.
Oh, sorry, Jackie.
Just to start.
Well, I think too, the tie here is that, well, there's a few things. One, this to me feels like that move from little c to big C, right? We're actually trying to do something and implement things. And we're trying to gather all of these voices. I feel like if we're going to have more regional specialized shelters, that also needs to go back to coordinated entry, because how are these new shelters now a part of the system, which also sort of ties into the race equity, VI SPDAT and that tool that's being used. And, so it feels like there's a lot of, again, sort of these, all these little things that kind of tick up into the coordinated entry piece of it. So it does kind of fit into the regional collaborative kind of stuff, and does sort of fit into one of the work groups that we already have from the committee level. And it kind of ties in this race equity piece. It might be a good place to look at the VI SPDAT tool.
Okay.
And if we need to, if that's the policy that we need to push on, if the thing is we don't have enough funding, now we're saying, right, like, we don't have enough funding. We've done this study. We've done this work. We've got we've got all of these voices saying this. And now as the big C, now we go to the policymakers and say, we need funding, kind of shake the trees. Is that the whole point of where it's going?
Yeah, I think that's exactly.
And just so I have our sort of the process that everyone's envisioning with this specifically, I have, we'll send out that focus strategies report to everyone. And also Julie's listening, and she chimed in to say, just for everyone's information, coordinated entry evaluations do occur annually, but we did receive a waiver this past year because of COVID. And Homebase also conducted a coordinated entry evaluation in 2018. Thank you, Julie. So we can dig that up as well.
Are those things you could send us to read so we can start to educate ourselves?
Yes, yes.
And even, are there things that coordinated entry would like to provide us to educate ourselves?
Ooh, okay, yes. So order of operations will send you the document so you can do a bit of homework and sort of absorb that. And then am I hearing that we want to invite coordinated entry to more of like a private sort of ad hoc meeting where we can pick their brains and say, you know, how can we support you better? What do you think needs to be strengthened? Those sorts of things. Or are we inviting them to a board meeting first?
Both. Like we need to do some tough conversation work, I think, that doesn't necessarily need to be a public meeting, because we're hearing from them and trying to learn and absorb from them, and they should have the freedom to say to us, here's where we need you to step up for this thing. And so I feel like you got to have kind of that dirty conversation, and then, well, it may not be dirty, but you gotta have a courageous conversation, and then you know, then I think it's from a public standpoint. Now we are going to talk about coordinated entry and the things that how we're moving forward, you know, and however that needs to look at the public side of the meeting. But I think it has to be both.
Okay, and so which one do you think should come first?
The
That sort of
courageous
private,
conversation.
real talk?
Yeah.
Okay. So private, real talk meeting first. And then are you thinking that once, you know, you sort of build that courageous conversation happens, then they'll have something to present at maybe what, April or May sort of thing? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think
What else?
what Samantha said makes sense in terms of the steps, but I think the discussion, the public one, is good because everybody on the board is interested in it. I mean, this is a fundamental, this is a cornerstone of the whole system, and so we got to make this work right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Excellent. Anything else about this? So we do have Tamara back. So can we talk a little bit about the order of operations for the ad hoc groups? And then before we leave, I know we have a little less than 20 minutes. I kind of want to go back to just see what we want to do with the mission statement and how we want to finish it up, whether that's ad hoc or what. So quickly, as far as the ad hoc work groups, what I have gathered is that, and I'm not sure if you were here for this part, Tamara, but I'll still say it, that we want to gather ideas and issues and possible ad hoc ideas from the committee, pretty much between like now and the April meeting. And then at the April meeting, they will come to the meeting and present their ideas to you. And then there's a vice versa thing happening where the board will basically see how their work will align with the regional strategies and how there might be some ad hoc work groups that come out of that as well. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Anything to add to that? Okay, great.
This is more of like implementing like a feedback loop between the committee and the board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would that be available to the data subcommittee, the coordinated entry committee?
Yeah, what do folks think?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Feedback group with all of the subcommittees. Okay, I'm just taking notes. Okay. Anything else to add here before we figure out how we want to tackle the rest of the mission, vision, and values? Okay, cool.
Would it make sense to just send that kind of working document out of the vision, mission? I know we always kind of say that we're going to do this homework, but maybe you just send it out and give us an opportunity to kind of look at it on our own or make any kind of suggested sort of changes. Because I think that we just need to sort of wrap that piece of it up. Because it's sort of, again, it just kind of feels like that chicken and egg. We keep coming back to this. What we're going to say has to kind of reflect this work that we're getting ready to launch into. And maybe if we have some time with it, we can kind of give our feedback. And maybe there's this kind of final, we did our homework, we sent the stuff to you guys, you put it in some pretty format, and then we were sharing it with other people. It can go, can go to the committees for them to review, and our service providers for them to review. I don't know who has to kind of be involved in that process, but maybe just to kind of wrap up that piece of it, because I feel like we could spend 4 hours going back and forth on words, and maybe we just do one final, like, send it out, let us give our input, you take it from there, and then put it in a thing, and then we put it out in the ether, so it's not just us any longer.
I like that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Do you want for the board to be able to weigh in on what's sent out for feedback? So do you want to see it again at your next board meeting, maybe? So we can incorporate feedback and then the board.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's best. I don't know if that's like you send it out to the entire board, like, here's where we got, here's kind of where we were at, and through the strategic planning, please give us your input from here. We take that, the staff kind of takes that and massages that a little bit. Maybe it does go back before the entire board, or maybe from there it just gets shipped to these different eyes that can look at it and give us input.
Right.
I'm not sure about the
just for the board's consideration, we have 4 board members on right now, or five, I guess, out of, is it 11, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
So just wasn't sure what your thoughts might be about addressing this at the next board meeting, just to make sure that we're including the whole board, or if you want to take what was done today and then send it off. We're happy to follow your direction on that.
Mm-hmm. And or something else to think about, do a couple board members that are here today want to kind of take it on as a homework, kind of get together, really kind of polish it up, send it back over to me. I can send it out to the board to say, this is what, these 2 board members did. And then we can send it out to the committee and all of that.
I think that somebody may have a great idea that we don't want to hear when it's being printed. So I would send it out to everybody, and people like me, you need to say, like, okay, this is really it. And if you really don't reply by Friday, then you got to support it. Right? Set a deadline. Yeah, I think the clearer you can be about, like, when you want what, or else you had your chance. I need that.
Okay. Is everybody else cool with that? Because I say deadlines a lot and they just aren't met. So I don't know what to do.
And then you can't complain. So.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That sounds good. Does that sound good to everybody else?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, great.
Does that mean, though, that you're going to get separate feedback from everyone, or is there going to be a couple people that, like, try to put it together and then you send it out and give everyone a deadline?
It really depends on what you all think. I can kind of pretty up this document that we've been working on right now, send it over to all of you, give you all, like, a week or whatever to work on it. Then, when I hear things back, then I can kind of compile that up, send it over to you one more time. This is what I'll be sending to the group. Anybody have any final anythings? And then we can just kind of go from there.
Is this going to include, like, the vision, the values piece too? So it's whatever anybody gives back to you and you're just going to work with it, and okay.
Yep. And how much, right. And so how much working with it is okay with the board from the staff point of view, because you'll send it back to us, and then us as staff, we can kind of try to polish it up. Is that okay with you? Because I know, it's really at your direction, making sure that you're leading it. But
yeah, I mean, if we're all giving you our input, and then you're doing the best you can with all of our input, which, okay. And then we all look at it one more time together and just do final tweaks.
Okay.
I think we can live with it.
That sounds good to me. Great. Excellent. Okay, then that answered my second question about how, we want to get stakeholders to look at it. Okay, excellent. So anything else on this part of our agenda before we move on to next steps and then adjourn for your weekend? No? Okay. So the other kind of lingering thing, as far as next steps and the chicken and the egg, that we didn't really tackle today, is the new member recruitment, and whether, you know, board want to, you know, seek new members first, or launch right in and then seek new members, or, you know, we don't really have to decide this today, but it's something that, you know, we kind of wanted to just put on your radar. Are there any thoughts about new member recruitment and where it fits into the timeline that we're discussing, as far as, you know, the development of policy related strategies and goals and all of that?
Sarah, don't we have kind of a defined cycle that we do that in? Or am I thinking back to the committee days?
But it hasn't really been done. We have seats that are missing on quite a few committees. I think that with the transition of staff, some things kind of got lost in the shuffle.
And
So yeah, there's quite a few. And then there is, like with the racial equity report also, you know, the encouragement of having more people with lived experience, and Black, Indigenous, people of color, people that were actually serving on these committees, and maybe adding some seats. And that's something that we could definitely start now, since we already have that report. But I think where I was kind of
I think Tamara's frozen.
where I was getting tripped up was, do we want new committees, or is this the structure that we want?
Right, and just to offer for the board's consideration as well, particularly through the outreach that's being done right now. We're talking with housing leaders and philanthropy and the business sector. And there's been also discussion about part of the document that you approved back in January, talked about making sure that the board is aligned with the regional council, because that's mutually beneficial to both. And there was talk about expanding the number of seats on the board to accommodate more representatives from the cities, towns, and counties. So there is that regular cycle. Certainly, there are some seats that have been left open for various reasons. And then there's the opportunity for the board to consider new seats, particularly for new sectors. So for example, schools have come up through the outreach forums as really a key partner, and one that extends beyond the HUD definition, but a really critical one in engaging in homelessness. Shelters are absolutely part of the homelessness ecosystem. Again, not funded with these HUD dollars, but a really important component. And philanthropy, because we're going to be receiving an influx of cash from the federal government, but we know that's very time limited and very focused. So we have ongoing needs to partner with people who have access to funding beyond the HUD dollars. So there's a whole range of different opportunities that could be brought to bear on this. And so kind of similar to the work group discussion, the new membership is, you know, it's a matter of how does the board want to pivot and evolve.
I'm not clear whether maybe I missed it. Do we want a board that has top policymakers or the most influential possible people who got the juice to get things done and deliver? Or do we want people who are day-to-day in the practice and know all the details and all the issues? I'm totally confused in all of our discussions about that. And we could go in either direction, but I don't think so we sometimes talk about, well, maybe some of the mayors should be on. I think there's a lot of merit to that. Maybe we should, have a lot of people with lived experience or day-to-day practice experience work. I understand that perspective, but there's no consensus yet. Maybe it's a hybrid. Yeah, I don't know who the right person. Maybe you want my bosses or my supervisors on the board, because they can hear things and allocate money. So I don't think we really know yet what we want.
I agree with Bruce, is that we all know that we need something different and something additional, I think, but I'm not sure that we're quite at the point where we know what that is yet. I think we definitely know we need to increase our diversity, both in racial equity, but also in, we got to think about Does that also include business policymakers? You know, what levels of people do we want? Personally, I think we need a really good mixture of all of that, because I don't think having all of one of any of those things, it will make the best group. But I think if we're going to be super strategic about that, that we are just not quite there yet. I want to get there soon, but I think we're just a tiny bit ahead of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe that kind of moves us over to our next strategic planning event, which will be next Friday, the 19th from 2 to 4. What would we like to see on that agenda that that we're mentioning? Would we like to put new member recruitment on the next agenda, or tell me what you would like to see on the next agenda?
I would like to talk about what we were just talking about, like how we're going to recruit new board members, how we want our committees to be structured, and like have the whole thing focused on that.
Okay, so recruit new board members, and then committee structure.
Yeah, that way they can also start to help us inform our plan going forward.
Help inform plan moving forward. And then
I'm thinking though, don't we need to like kind of decide what are like our major policy issues are going to be before we figure out who those board members should be and what those committees should look like? I feel like we have like one more step to do maybe.
Okay. Sure.
Like, I feel like this is why we were talking about sort of the where the work is going to come from. So I think I don't know if it makes sense next Friday just to think about all of the things that are developing so far, because I know that we have the race equity work. There's that bucket. At some level, we know a bit about what the committee wants in terms of like their move on and the eviction and looking at some of that kind of stuff. We just had this massive, wonderful, amazing discussion on coordinated entry, and then we've got at least 5 draft things from the regional collaborative. So it feels like we got to kind of take a look at all of these things, all this work, and figure out, I guess, what we're trying to do. What is our role?
And I think that was while you were gone, Tamara, that we were talking about like getting the groupings together and figuring out what committees we would need and which issues we want to hit first.
Yeah.
Getting that together in April, and then we would be ready for the next step.
And the next step would be our structure and
yeah. Yep.
So if I'm hearing correctly, the 19th is going to be a strategy session to really hone in more with you folks on your goals as far as policy related strategies and how then, if we get to it, how then to sort of roll that out to the various committees and work groups and sort of do that cyclical intermingling thing. Did I say that right? I said a lot, sorry.
Well, I think this is like us as the big C, right? Like we're the big C. So what do we want? What do we want to focus on? We have all these areas to kind of look at. What do we want to focus on? Because I think that'll help drill down to what we need. Are we going to work on policy? Are we going to work on funding? It might be funding for this thing, strategic plan for this thing, and policy for this other thing, right? So we might be doing all of these things, but I think at least kind of getting the board in a place where, what do we want to work on? What are the initiatives that we want to take a look at? What's already exists? What's already there? So if we do that, to me is like what the 19th should be about. We should be thinking about what we want as a board, so that we're ready to go to kind of, pull in the information from the committees, pull in the information from the regional collaborative, because all of it's going to align in some sort of way. But I think we need to figure out what's going to be the priority for us, because that would drive the committees. It would drive the members, what kind of members we need. So that to me is like, what are we going to work on? That should be, as the big C, what do we want to work on?
Mhm. And Sam, would that also sort of include how the board wants to participate in the regional strategies and what the capacity is for that? And which of those already sort of, meet the goals that you all want to focus on? Is that what you're saying as well? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's why I feel like for me, it's like buckets. I can see like these buckets, these areas, and a lot of it has crossover. And we still, as a board, I think to Ryan's point is like, we want to talk about coordinated entry. And so we gotta think about our buckets of work. What are we going to focus on? What are we going to say to the regional collaborative? Like, hey, you know what, affordable housing in this way is a little bit out of our depth. So you pull a committee together, you work on this, kind of a thing. Yeah. We'll focus on coordinated entry. You focus on getting the shelters built, like that. Like we got to figure out that kind of piece of it to me.
Yes. Okay, great. And I do want to be mindful of folks' time. I know it's right at 4:00. So I want you all to enjoy your weekends, but please send me any other ideas that you have about agenda items for the strategy session, for the board meetings, what have you. You will be receiving an email from me shortly, maybe Monday, if that's okay, with the mission statement and vision and values and all of that. But I want to thank you all so much for your time today. And this was very productive. I know it may not seem like we got through too much, but we really, really did. So any last words from our chairwomen, our chairs, before we say goodbye until next time?
A wonderful weekend. I know it's cold out.
Thanks everyone for all your hard thinking.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Yes. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Mag.